I'm going to be talking about the way that, about the debates that are currently going on particularly in and around Centro in New York on the post-2015 International Development Agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is really an important time in which there is a lot of this talk about what should be in these goals and what should the agenda look like. And a lot of the debate is of course about what is important, but I am looking at these debates in terms of why ideas are important. The role of ideas in international relations, in international development cooperation, and how this process is actually shifting and evolving how we define this thing called development. And so since 2000 we've had the Millennium Declaration adopted and these development goals, 8 development goals, launched since, can I go back to the previous slide before? The one before? There is a lot of enthusiasm around the Millennium Development Goals because they are poverty goals. But there are very wide, important implications of having adopted these goals in terms of the history of thinking about development and history of consensus definition of development. And so an economist called Charles Gore remarked that the consensus on the MDG poverty goals was achieved through the elimination of the old idea of promoting national economic development. So it isn't that we are very happy that poverty goals have now become the consensus objective of the international community, but we should worry about the fact that this new idea has actually replaced an old one. And I think that's perhaps just as important as the new idea, that the old idea has gone. And so Charles calls this perhaps a Faustian bargain. And the next, what I think is important is that somehow we've lived through this shift in thinking in 2000 about how we define development, and the opportunities that we have in debating the post-2015 goals and the Sustainable Development Goals will mean another turning point. And another important aspect of this phenomenon of the Millennium Development Goals is that not only did it change the idea of development, redefine it, but also that there was this strategic use made of this instrument called development goals, goal setting. And and why is it that defining what we think about, how we define development is important? Well, in the end, ideas are important because the definition of development defines, of course, what the important objectives are, how we identify the major constraints, and therefore, by consequence, what we consider to be the priority policy measures. And all of this has very important implications for the economic and political relations amongst countries, particularly between the rich countries and the poorer countries and the less poor countries, perhaps. So the next slide, please. So my talk is going to be about some of these themes. So first of all, I mentioned to you that this evolution in the definition of development has taken place through this strategic use of development goals. And why was it such a strategic use, because these goals actually don't do anything. It's not like these are national planning goals where the government has command over resources and you can allocate resources, you can allocate personnel, you can align policy reforms to achieve